right. Well, I guess we should start. So it's good to see everybody. I think this is I'm just trying to do a head count to see if we have enough folks on. We have a voting majority of the TSC, so we can proceed. If y'all have not already done so, the link to the meeting or to the agenda is here. And this agenda is going to look largely like last agenda, because we have lots of stuff to work out as far as our priorities. We'll start with a review of the maintainer and standards team status. And then we'll go on to the hackathon and planning for its completion, roadmap discussion, which will take up most of the time, and regular business, if any. I don't see any additions to the agenda. Does anyone wish to add any item for the agenda today? Okay. We'll start with maintainer and standards team. Start with the maintainer. Sam, can you do the honors? Are there any things that the TSC must review from the maintainer?
No, nothing to review right now, but we'll just mention that as part of the hackathon, we've had been in discussions with people as questions come up, and it seems like we're getting some good contributions, more so to the generic any pool request bounty than any others that I've heard, at least, but potentially have some maintainer candidates that would come out of contributions from the hackathon. So we'll keep you updated on that.
That's great. And I think the report was that we have at least one competitor, as it were, on each of the 7 bounties, correct?
Yeah, at least on each of them. I think there's only 5 or 6 bounties, John, but on each of them, people have at least expressed interest to them via Gitcoin.
We've seen some code too.
Yeah.
The folks are writing.
Yeah.
Okay, good. It's good to see. And I know that folks kind of there's usually a spike, I'm told, at the end where lots of people come out of the woodwork. They work in secret until they come out at the end. So we'll see where that goes. Okay, and as I recall, you were we have gone down to 2, correct? 2 approvers.
Yep. Yeah, I think Kyle actually made that change. The proposal on this last meeting was reduce the number of required approvals on PRs from 3 to 2, but still requiring 2 of the code owners to approve. So that is in effect now.
Okay, and I'm writing a note. The TSC has confirmed by majority to move approvers, PR approvals to 2 maintainers from 3. Until changed. So there's nothing stopping us from changing it right back. But for now, it shall be 2. Please be advised to keep an eye on what that does to the integrity of the process, and everybody should be vigilant on that. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for maintainer side.
Okay, Kale Teeter still in process?
Yeah, last time I had spoken with Kale, definitely mutual interest in him joining the maintainers team, but was wanting to enforce our requirement that there has to be some sort of contribution to the repo in the form of code or architecture designs or something, and haven't seen that from him yet. So kind of on hold until that happens.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Moving on to standards team, Anais.
Hello, yes. So nothing to review, but one update. So the standard and spec working sessions are now happening weekly instead of every other week. And we are still working on the API requirements. And I think we'll be doing that for a couple of months. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. Very good. And Anais, do you guys, does the standards team have a sense of when a draft that will be made public would come out? Would that be a summer timeframe kind of a thing?
If your question is related to the complete draft for the API specifications, I think summer is reasonable. In terms of the highlights, the different sections and what we are working on, we can already share that. And there is actually one available in the repo that will be updated with drafted definitions. I think it will be helpful to already push that to the wider community. We can discuss if it can happen this month or in February. So
That's terrific. Okay. Moving on to review of hackathon status. So we've already said a couple of things about that. We have, I guess it's 6, right? We have plus the pull request. We have 5 plus pull requests. Is that right, Sam?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
We have 5 challenges plus the pull request.
Yes, yeah, for the hackathon, those 5 bounties. Yes.
Okay, I didn't preload that. Just give me 1 second. I'll pull that up. Bitcoin hackathon on board. And I'll share screen. So let's just review these for a bit. We have the any pull request. There's 322 people, participants signed up. That's people that are at least watching. It looks like 21 projects now that are known. There could be a lot of invisible ones. Is that correct? I think that's correct. Any pull request, the Microsoft Excel persistence package.
Yes, there's one, and I think there'll probably be another one. Do you need to? Yeah, there's one.
Cool. Now I'm just going to do a quick enumeration of the, unless, yeah, I mean, Kyle, if there's any color that should be mentioned to the community here, please, anybody that's involved in these, speak up. We'll just enumerate them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, John. I haven't actually seen this Gitcoin page yet. Could you please share the URL of this page in the Zoom chat?
Yes, of course. Hold on.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good to see you, Noam.
You as well.
All right. So tokenization of baseline records, hackathon challenge. Yeah, so this one has at least one applicant. I see this one, enable a finalized baseline workflow to exit has 0 applicants, but Sam, Kyle, folks, or do we know that I got the report?
So, yeah, so there's some, I guess you could call it enablement work that's been done to make that a lot easier. Yeah, if anyone's interested in how to potentially contribute or submit a hackathon project around that, then reach out on Slack, I guess.
It's a good write-up, but it is a pretty gnarly project for $1,000.
Indeed.
And I know that the core of the community is working on this, right? The maintainers are working on this. Maintainers can win this bounty. The only one that maintainers cannot win is so I mean, if we're already working on this, whoever is working on this, even if you're already in the community, can win this bounty. The only one that you can't win as a maintainer is any pull request, because the way you win that or become part of the pool is by getting a pull request approved. And if you're a maintainer, you can self-serve, right? So that's the only one that is not on the table for maintainers.
I don't think you can technically self-serve, but yeah, I don't
Well, you
think
could
you should.
sign up one other person, but you could approve your own pull request is my point.
No, you can't.
Oh, you're right. You can't.
Yeah, and I don't think you should be able to win that bounty though. Anyway.
Okay, so
you're
we'll keep the rule. But
yeah.
By
the way, note-
you're actually correct. Yeah, go ahead.
By the way, note that the prices have actually doubled in value.
No, they
Indeed.
haven't. No.
Well, I mean,
this is an important point of order. We didn't fund it in ETH. We funded it in dollars that will be paid.
Oh, you
in
did?
ETH on the yes.
So
on the
actually,
day.
then that needs to be changed like ASAP because it's
absolutely.
very confusing.
Yeah, it is.
Do you know what I
Because
mean?
it says that it's funded in ETH.
Yes.
Well, it is. It's paid in ETH. So you're right.
So that needs to be changed.
Yeah.
Right,
Right,
because-
I will.
because
Well, I don't know that it needs to be
You're
changed.
essentially getting
but
half as much ETH now.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be changed because it's never been different, but it clearly needs to be
If you're
double down on
Oh.
explanation, right?
Yeah, no, the ETH value hasn't changed, right? The fiat value, because it's Gitcoin, right? That has changed, right? So Gitcoin uses the latest exchange price from, I don't know, Coinbase and calculates the fiat value of ETH, right?
Yep.
So if you either
You
you
fund
you need to change the ETH value to match the original dollar value, which means the ETH value needs to be reduced. Otherwise, you actually can get into legal trouble.
yeah.
I'm taking an action right now to make sure that that is.
Right? Because otherwise they can say, well, pay me in ETH. You said 3.402 ETH, pay me.
Yeah, I don't have it at my fingertips, but I know that we worked with Gitcoin team on this and double confirmed that that the policy is pay in the dollar amount, but pay the dollar amount, but pay in ETH on the date. That is the rule, but the fact that you and others thought it was different from that says that there's not clarity there.
Well, if you add up all the US
Have
dollars,
they signed a
if you-
consent? Have they signed a consent form when they signed up that is actually the case? Because otherwise they can just simply turn around and sue.
look at the.
Well,
if
let's not be too dramatic. So I'm taking an action to check with Gitcoin on this matter. Okay.
Well, if you
I-
add up all the fiat values on the right, it blows past the 10K now because it is expressed in
Yeah.
ETH.
So just change the ETH value to match, and that's all you need, right?
Yeah.
I mean that's fine, right? But I would make a note of that to get that done ASAP. Or put a disclaimer on the page.
Yes,
Just talk to
I've
Gitcoin
taken the
about it.
action
either
and
way.
we will proceed. Good. Anyway,
Yep.
yeah, I will take the action to contact Gitcoin. and-
Thank you, John. Appreciate
fine.
that.
Okay. Now let's get into, let's go back to are you all still seeing the page? I think so. Yes. Scaling Baseline Hackathon 2020. It's got one applicant. Set up a baseline work group using the DIDs. Got 3 applicants on that one. And Baseline Chain Switcher has 4 applicants. Any color or additional information on any of these that anyone would like to provide before we get into discussing how we will exit? Okay, so the challenge before us, starting a week and a couple of days from now, will be to get these judged and in a right and honorable way, judged and correctly assessed. I would like to ask that we have a small committee of people to organize this. let's say 3 people. I'd like to get by the end of the day, I'd like to get volunteers for that. Would anyone like to volunteer on camera right now? This, and to be specific, this will organize the judging, likely a lot of maintainers involved in that. But it doesn't have to be maintainers.
I nominate Sam.
Yeah, I think we should all nominate Sam. And then we should clone him twice. So then it's just 3 Sams, and that would actually be perfect. We need more Sams in the world anyway.
Yes, we do.
Thank you, John. It's flattering. I did miss what you're trying to assign to me.
All right, now we're only going to clone you twice now. You just lost a clone.
John, happy to help. Sorry, you caught me walking up the stairs when you asked for volunteers. So I had both hands full.
Right, we'd be grateful
myself.
for that. I was hoping you would volunteer. You're a good judge. So Kyle, you're on. Is that right? Or do you have your hands full with the biggest project out there right now?
No, yeah, of course I'll help judge the hackathon. I think I know I actually nominated you, Sam, to help with that. That's where that came from.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy.
Yeah, of course I'll help out. I'll for it.
All right. Please be advised that by the end of the day, I should hope to get a complete set. I'd like to see 3 people who will not simply judge, but really organize the judging so that we can say that at the end of the day, because there's real money on the line here. As Andreas alluded to, I do not want to, I don't think any of us want to see a result where somebody feels cheated or, that something was fishy, either in its facts or in its optics, right? So I should very much like to see 3 people step up to ensure that we, as a community, do the right thing on this.
I'll do it with Andreas and Sam if they want to commit to that.
Yeah, and I also think for example, for the bounty on the global phone book, I think Italo would probably be good to help judge on that since he wrote a significant part of that.
Oh, no doubt. But this is the team to organize the
that.
judges. Yeah. Right.
Okay.
So
you're perfect for this, Sam.
Okay.
That's the problem of the universe is that people with skills that should be using their skills have to also like organize people. Kyle. All right, I'm there you are. Kyle was looking for your GitHub ID. There it is. Andreas is there. Can be only one, if I recall. Yep, very good. We'll organize the judging of the hackathon, which concludes on the 27th. Just to kick you guys off, probably the first item in your meeting, which it would be great if you guys could, put the minutes of your meetings and such on some public place where we can all see them, and let folks know on the general channel where to find them, so that we all know how you're proceeding. It would be good if one of the first things is going to be confirming the time on the 27th. That is the end, and y'all can work with me on connecting with the Gitcoin team on this matter.
Sounds good.
And the second thing is deciding exactly how long you guys think the judges can and should take to complete the judging so that we can pay out. I think in general, February ought to be the month. Shouldn't be after February. The question is, how soon in February can we pull it off? Does anyone think that that's too short of a time frame? Andreas, I'm looking at you on that in particular, because yours is probably the gnarliest one to judge.
Oh, I mean, my judging criteria are pretty straightforward. They're they're listed there, right? You meet them, and there's only one, thumbs up. If not, you know, you don't. So
Okay, fair enough.
it's relatively straightforward, right? It's like I was fairly explicit on what you have to do. I just should be able to run it and see the logs and everything. And you know, if I can see that, all good. If not,
Yeah, my judging process, you know, takes as long as it takes me to find my dice, and then kidding.
I mean,
hate
only
making
if they're
jokes on
two.
a
If they're,
conference call because you just don't know if you've landed the joke or not. But
that's all right. That's all
everyone's
right.
on
You always land, John. You always land.
got to bring the funny. All right, so we're moving on. Any other items or issues we have to bring up with Hackathon? Five, six, seven, eight. Okay, no. All right, we're moving on to the next item, which is the roadmap. So I'll stop sharing for a second, and I'll share again. If you go into the repo, you'll see. I'm stalling here. I guess I'll just do that. Okay, so I'm just bringing up another instance of GitHub from the minutes one. And I don't know why, but sometimes it just doesn't come up. Forgive me for a second here. Everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
There we go. Gotta love it. Okay, so I put up a short-term Q1 2021 item here, pipeline. And yesterday I put in a bunch of the stuff that we discussed on our last call. And I guess I'll stop sharing it for a second, and I'll just share the overall screen here. So if everyone will remember, this is sort of what we discussed last time: enablement materials, or on ramps. Looking through all of this is, much of it had to do with enablement. So would anyone disagree that this quarter at least is the quarter of enablement? And specifically, that means providing enablement materials and focusing on development activities that help solution sellers like Accenture and others be able to identify opportunities, engage those opportunities, close deals, and then deliver something that it can go to production.
So open source sales material is if I'm being a little flippant and
tools as well, right?
Right.
Well, we really need a tool that will help somebody do XYZ.
Is there, for example, a demo video that people could use, right? Things like that.
That would be included indeed. So if you look at so I synthesized those particular things out into item 178, which I'll copy into chat. So item 178 in the roadmap repo, we got things like Hello World Library for baselining. I know Brian Chamberlain, you're quite interested in that one in particular. A clear, crisp value proposition, which I think we're getting pretty close to having. A deck. By the way, Nick Kritikos has kind of assembled what I think is a very good deck. And Nick, perhaps it's time for us to publish that outside of just our internal team. Would you agree?
All right. Yeah, we're getting close. We're going to be using it for a lot of training and enablement activities. So the more people that we have sort of vetted on it and are capable of delivering the message, the greater reach we'll have. So if you're interested in participating in that kind of enablement program and kind of leading the charge as a baseline evangelical, let me know. I'd be happy to talk to you.
Sure.
Can I hear an amen?
Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
Oh boy. Dick, for baseline project sellers, yeah, use cases and implementation cookbooks for specific industries. This is something that came off of some input from Tracy and also from Karen regarding specific industries. Been learning a lot about the BP oil and gas industry in the last couple of weeks myself, and it's quite interesting. Advertising industry, we have some friends Italo and others involved in the identity work that are really they're one of their leaders. Alana Gumber is well known in the advertising space, came out of Google Ads and other things, and so we have some knowledge of that industry. Healthcare, we were started with folks like Kaiser Permanente and others, so we have connections to the deep issues there. Horizontally, these all come down to what mistakes happen when records in company A are not consistent with records in company B. That's a nice, tight, narrow horizontal. Then the question is, what are the nuances of that problem space in any given industry that one wants to go after and target? And should we focus fire on one particular one and then move to the next, or should we have, sort of a competition of attention for different industries that people have interests in? That's a question on the table. The outreach plan, some kind of a joint, should we set up this was a suggestion I received after the call. Maybe we should set up a joint CRM. There's a lot of CRM tools out there that are not, expensive and sort of SaaS-based open sourcey type CRMs. So we could look into setting one up Slack styles across all of us, even though we're in different companies, specifically for outreach around baselining. That's on the table.
Why not use GitHub for that? A GitHub project.
Sure.
Because that you can just simply set that up, and then you enter the records in as they come through, and then it's just like a sales pipeline, right? I mean, I'm just trying to minimize costs, keep things simple, and keep things in one place. I think that it might be worth considering that, because we don't need, I don't think we need excessive fancy tools, sales reporting, right? I'm just trying to keep it simple.
I think that is a reasonable proposal.
Nick, as our sales guru, thoughts?
Sorry, I was multitasking, reading an email. Ask that again.
Andreas had a thought on using GitHub project or something like that to as a cross-company joint CRM for outreach.
It's feasible. Most of the time people doing customer relationship type activity are not necessarily super familiar with GitHub. So we just have to make sure that we keep it simple in terms of how we're using it, and it shouldn't be a problem.
I think we can
infeasible.
Right, we can set up a particular, it's like project that pertains to type of issues, so you can easily just like tag it or label it, and once you have one label, then it automatically is pulled into the flow, and then
it might be helpful for like a positioning or a sales stack, right? Where parties may not want to collaborate in the clear, if you will, on a particular opportunity, because they may be pursuing it themselves and they want to mitigate some competition, or maybe two partners in the baseline community are working it together.
I was not.
They don't want to add third or fourth. But as you come across issues, things like that. Oh, how does the CIO or the CEO of so and so wants to know, how you cost this, or what, whatever the question is, right? You could capture that and share that with the community so everybody could become better at positioning it.
It could also be who hasn't, it's like if we want to reach out and talk with, I don't know, the SEC about tokenization of baseline records, or the Digital Chamber of Commerce, or it's like whoever we target for outreach, or to join baseline as a member. Is like, I thought, it's like, I don't know, China Telecom might be really interested in becoming a member. I read something about it. Who has connections to China Telecom?
Yeah, could absolutely be used that
right
way.
So that type of thing. So then you can I was not, based on what John was saying, not envisioning that this would be CRM for
like a
individual
hardcore sales
projects.
effort. Yes.
No,
It would be
certainly if you're a company
community
selling baseline.
Coordination.
Yeah, if you're
Community
selling
coordination.
company selling a product into the baselining market, you're not going to want to put that on an open database. That was not the intent, I think.
Right. So it's more like who are we approaching, or who should we be approaching?
Yeah, who are we telling the story to?
Who should we be telling the story to? Do people in the community have contacts and know
access? And yes,
that access sense. So we can do that, and then we can follow through that outreach in an open source way, because if people know and they say, hey, there's a call, we're setting up a call with that, we need this type of expertise, or who wants to be on that call from the community. I think that's the type of thing that I'm thinking thinking about, and developer outreach, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and unfortunately our Slack instance doesn't support messages beyond 10,000 messages, right? So it's not good for that kind of activity, but a GitHub repo could work really well.
Yeah, I am aware that the Slack is under consideration by Oasis to go to the pro. It's kind of expensive, even for a nonprofit, to get the pro version of Slack.
It's been under consideration for a while, so I'm sure.
Yes,
I'm not counting on it at this point.
Maybe one of the bigger sponsors is willing to pay for that.
That is actually an interesting point, and is on its way. I'll discuss that at the end under regular business. Somebody keep me honest on that. Okay, so then there's push for tools, docs, and core improvements required for adopting baseline in an easy way. I think the hackathon has identified a number of areas. Kyle and Sam and Brian and others, would you agree that we've really learned a lot about where people get stuck?
Yeah, I think so.
Well, it would be good to enumerate those, I think, and to start to mobilize on how we will smooth those edges out so they don't get stuck.
Mm-hmm. I also think the standards work is helping with this.
Yes. Okay.
That's the intent.
Content on how to get past the POC trap with baseline. That's kind of something that might go in the deck. And then a refocusing from the notion of supply chain transparency to the notion of workflow integrity. That was something we discussed at length last time. And then finally, content and outreach plan to capture and amplify the wave currently underway, where firms are focusing not only on internal data hygiene, but also on multi-party workflow integrity. I don't have it on my fingertips, but last week there was a article that came out. Does anybody recall that specific reference? The article was about companies that looks like the projection. Yeah, in fact, it was it Gartner? Projected that this year companies, no, it was SAP. Sorry, it was SAP that predicted that companies will start this year focused on internal data efforts, but that by the end of the year, many of them, that there's going to be a growing wave of multi-party workflow. And I'm pretty sure that nobody would disagree at this point that that's sort of the sweet spot for baselining. So that was it. That was all I was able to compile. I promised that I would compile an ordered list. This is not an ordered list, but it is a list. And it strikes me that there are two big components to it that perhaps we need committees for at this time. And Nick, I'm kind of looking over at you. I think that the deck use cases outreach plan, the thing about the tools that we were just, or the CRM thing that we were just talking about, would you consider, and feel free to not answer and we can talk about it afterwards, but perhaps somebody like yourself, or perhaps you could find a delegate that would lead some meetings in the coming weeks on that work. So working sessions, I should say, not meetings, on really, driving all of that sort of work to home.
Yeah, I'm happy to step on that gas pedal, so to speak. But as is often the case, it'd be great to have a partner in crime, so to speak, so that we could work together on this and divide and conquer where it makes sense. Yeah, I've already started on the enablement materials for kind of a business technical, and have line of sight on hands-on technical. Kyle, based on your discussion around things that what people always run into, should be a key part of the hands-on technical training as well. And then kind of organizing hunting parties, if you will, for going after some of these bigger game, these targets, like named accounts, making sure we're getting more participation from certain regions that maybe we're not seeing the participation that we want to, that kind of thing. That would be great.
I can't see my list of folks who are on the call. Is Tracy on the call? Oh, Tracy is on the call. Hi, Tracy.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, I'm guessing that you're going to want in on that action as well.
I certainly am.
Mark. Yep.
All right, Mark, coming along for the ride.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. I think add me, and if I can join, I'll definitely join.
Thanks, Tracy.
Yep.
All right. Very good. So that's one working group or committee, if you will. And then the other one, there's either one or two. So my question is to the team here: the Hello World library, that's code work. The outreach, or the push for tools, docs, and that sort of thing is somewhat code work, with some docs work in there. And then, those two in particular are deserving of, so perhaps some working sessions on, in particular, what we just said about getting, where, smoothing out the places where things get stuck. Would somebody like to step forward and lead some working sessions in the next several weeks over that matter?
Maybe like in mid-February, or early, maybe first or second week of February, I can lead one.
Yeah, let's say that this working group session will end at the end of February.
Yeah, I could do one in February.
Okay.
If you're
I
talking
also
about
know
just
that
like
Brian. Yep.
No,
Okay.
go ahead. Sorry.
I know Brian's pretty interested in the Hello World stuff, so I don't want to volunteer him, but I just want to make sure. Brian, are you live here?
Yep.
Does this one interest you?
The Hello World one?
So having a working group between now and the end of February on code and core improvements required to, specifically for the purpose of making it easy to get up on enablement, get up and running.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Anyone else?
I feel like Sam's configuration tools also part of that. So yeah, what's Sam? I'm volunteering you.
That's a recurring theme.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, we're working on a kind of an initial concept of, I guess, making a like admin dashboard for a baseline stack. So a UI you can look at to see all the details of what's going on within your baseline stack, and maybe do some configuration. So that's what Brian was referring to.
Okay. And then on the value proposition and the website improvements, we can either make that part of that working group, or we can have a third working group. I know Anais, I was thinking on the website and in particular on the on sort of how this, you know, the docs and other that sort of thing. I mean, maybe it's best if we just include that in the second working group. Keep it simple.
Yes, I think it should be included in the second working group because it will all tie together. Because whatever code will be developed or pushed, we need to have a process to document that and refer that to the on the doc, basically in the documentation. Sorry, yeah.
Docs, value prop, and website. I think it's time for another tick up in the website, right? And certainly there should be a big, you know, lit up sign on the website saying here's where you get your enablement stuff. Right. Okay. So those are the working groups. So the above two working groups chartered through the end of February. So we will review what those working groups come up with and what the results were at the end of February, whatever that meeting, that session is. Might be the beginning of March if it's close. Sound right? Okay. So again, the link to this to today is in the to today's agenda, and the items that we've just discussed are in the chat. If anybody came late and doesn't have that, let me know and I'll post it again. And yeah, so I asked to keep me honest on what I want to bring up in the regular business, and now I can't remember what it was that I was supposed to bring up.
Was it the Slack thing, John?
Oh yes, thanks, Tracy. Yes, the Slack thing. So I've had discussions with Oasis and with folks like Dan Burnett over the EEA on ways to fund and to fund incentives for open source work. I will be providing a write-up of findings from the last couple of months of looking into that matter. And I have to say, I've got some pretty interesting and exciting ideas for how that can be done in an ethical and open source way. And just for the record, we have submitted a request to Oasis at the PGB to over the next few months get very explicit about what services and support levels we get for how much sponsorship we get, right? So that we can say, well, we really need a toaster. Let's do a sponsorship drive so that we can get that toaster, because we don't have enough sponsorship to get the toaster, right? And that would be the Slack would be a good example of that. If we want to say, well, we just don't rate Slack because it's expensive and we just don't have the sponsorship dollars going into the system for that. We can say, well, here's the fund drive for that. We could go after that particular goal. That is the objective. So more to come on that. That's just me reporting out from the PGB.
So GoFundMe page?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a GoFundMe page, but yeah, it's effectively there's.
Well,
there's
I
two
mean,
things.
literally, that's what it is, right?
No, this would be, hey, we have 10 sponsors, but if we had 20 sponsors, we can get the toaster.
It's a Go Sponsor Me page.
Yeah, it's not it's structurally not unlike what you're saying, but different. The other part of funding that I think is quite interesting is one of the notions is around something that we were exploring a few years ago called Hey Pi, where imagine we had a bounty or a Gitcoin grant that was quarterly or half year or yearly, where it's kind of a big pot of money, and more people can put more money into that if the project is getting interesting, and then every session we are effectively doling out points against that pot of money, so that in the end, whatever's in that pot is divided up on a pro rata basis according to the points given by the community to each other, which inflates. So if like Kyle and I and Nick and Stefan have a point each, and there's $10 in the pot, well, if there's 5 of us, where each of us is going to get $2. But if we give some 5 more people a point, then we're each only going to get $1. So it creates a really interesting mental calculus to say, well, wait a minute, how valuable was this thing? Do I want to dilute my own points? So there's ideas like that. The interesting thing about that is, if you think about open source incentive funding, the problem with it is you don't want to create an open source regime where somebody who can pay a lot winds up determining unto themselves what gets done just because they can pay. And that really stops being an open source public kind of a thing at that point too. But if you say, no, I'm interested in the overall project, and in addition to sponsoring, I want to put some money into this incentives pot, you cannot be deterministic about what winds up getting the points, which is kind of an interesting thought. I think there's still some game theory problems in that, so we're still looking into it, but just to kind of get you thinking about ideas, and hopefully that will give you, somebody on the call today will have some other ideas about that. And if you do, please call me, because I'll be writing up the paper in the next few weeks.
What game theory problems?
Honestly, I'm a little slow this morning, so I'm going to say I can't think of a specific one off the top of my head, but my gut tells me that there's still ways to game that system.
What are we talking about? I'm sorry, I missed it.
Funding regimes for ethically and openly funding incentives. So we're looking at the Gitcoin Hackathon, and we will be compiling learnings from that to see if we can't tick the idea of incentive funding forward without running afoul of the half a dozen or a dozen things that you'd have to worry about in a money for incentive.
Yeah. I got it now. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a balance. Like, there are people on this call that I would like to give some points to, and none of them do it for the money, and that needs to stay the thing, right? If you wind up with a funding system where it just devolves into, I want to get money for stuff, then that changes the character of an open source organization. So there's just all these little balance points that you have to watch out for.
Well, you can do it not money, but but as reputation, right? You can issue, right, as a recognition, as a reputation.
Certainly.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not, you can make the rule that, if I give you 100, unless someone else would also qualify that is okay, it's actually not counted as 100. It's pending confirmation, right? So it's like, hey, did he actually do that, right? So it's like I've actually written extensively about that. So it's actually one of the things that the Communications Business Automation Network is basically going to adopt, maybe not this year, but next year, is a reputation system for their ecosystem, and there's a very detailed write-up about that. Happy to share that if there were of interest. But if the community is large enough,
if you could send that, I would love to see it.
Yeah, I'll do that. It just basically is, if the community is large enough, then your community reputation becomes very valuable without being fiat, right? So if you want to sidestep sort of like the pay for play problem.
Certainly. So let's take that offline. There's lots to talk about. I've written up several pages on it already, and I'm looking for more input. I'll begin the final process of writing that with the intention of finishing in February after the 27th, so that we can observe what happens with the hackathon. So I won't begin the final drafting of that paper until then. We have about 5 minutes left, and I'm mindful of the fact that I just outlined what we discussed last week. I did not open up the floor to ask if there were other thoughts about what our priorities should be in Q1.
So I have one item, John, for maybe for the TSC to talk about. There's a pull request for Radish 34, and one of the contributors to that pull request made the point that like the Radish 34 example is not, doesn't work out of the box, but is also basically like misleading if you were to spend your time in Radish 34 right now, because it uses Whisper, for example, and that's not a good way to baseline stuff. And so what I mentioned that I would bring up at the meeting today, that concern. And I basically just said, well, we should update the README and then we can merge your PR, because it was a good looking PR. But it pins Geth to a version that uses Whisper, which is misleading for the community, I think, a bit, to see stuff like that getting merged, because that's not how you baseline records.
So are you suggesting a two-step process? One being we've update the documents so that people really know walking into Radish 34 that this is old and sort of on its way to being deprecated, but it's also step two, we're updating it so that it will work with BRIs. Is that right?
Yes, essentially. Yeah, I think the suggestion I gave was just to add like a deprecation warning in the README and some links to the generic
new stuff,
the docs. Yeah.
So you go from so hey, Radish 34 is interesting and illustrative of what you can be doing. Mm-hmm. Now, hey, go over here and take a look at Alice and Bob. Mm-hmm. Is that right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. Is that is the document change being affected?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, the recommend. He was like, "Oh, should we just remove our Radish 34?" That seems like that's not the right thing to do. But it definitely needs to be clear to the community where to look.
There's a new community member that has been asking for to be pointed at places that they can help on documentation work. I will take the action to see if they can't help there. How's that?
Sounds good.
Anybody else? I mean, what else? What have we missed? Have we missed anything in terms of priorities? Ash, I know you've been doing a lot of reporting on the community. Do you see anything that's missing in what we're trying to do?
Hi, John. No, I don't think so. I think get the word out. And one thing that might help with getting the word out is explaining the differences between why is blockchain or why is baseline different. I think that's maybe the key thing, because baseline is very different to everything. So maybe focus on that that's what I'd recommend.
That makes a lot of sense. I think that and that's good word. Those are good words for the enablement. One of the two, the enablement committee for the working group.
And I'd mentioned to Anais, and I was just about to text Kyle, I can't help with anything to do with coding, but if you need help with documents, those are skills that I do have. So ping them this way. No avalanches, please, but I'm happy to help out on that side.
That you might come to regret making that suggestion, but that sounds pretty exciting. I saw that Yeah, Avia, I think, just had to drop. Avia has done yeoman's work in the past on this as well, so we'll probably reach out to her on this thing, Nick. Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Anyone? Bueller, Matt? I know you guys. You and Jonty are here. Do you have any thoughts or from? Maybe you can say a few words about your team and what you're doing.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I'm Matt Banner. I'm the CTO from Tech Tower, and we've also got Jonty, who's my head of architecture. We predominantly come from air traffic management in the UK, so air traffic management, aviation, but we've worked on other things. So we've worked on payment systems, and our CEO Simon Brown knows John from a project and program that he set up in the UK called Fly to Plan, which is looking at the minute, a lot of the messaging infrastructure within aviation and ATM is centralized. There's a project called Single European Skies. It's a centralized system. Everything is centralized. And the problem is with that is the moment you start involving nation actors, the moment you start involving various different parts of the industry, it becomes very complex for them to move their engineering into that centralized system where they need to be able to trust those central authorities, etc. And so we've been looking at distributed ledger technology as a way of really moving away from a centralized model, while still looking at ways in which we can guarantee trust between stakeholders. So we've won basically a big bag of cash from the government, the UK government, to be the technology leader within that system. So we're working with Heathrow, British Airways, the International Airline Group, a whole bunch of industry bigwigs, but little Tech Tower has basically got the sort of SME within that, who's putting together, implementing the technology. Now, we want to use open source. We effectively, what we want is an open source core, and then have a set of premium services which are built off it, to basically keep the money train going, so we can actually solve interesting problems. So when Simon mentioned to me that he'd been, he'd met John and was looking at the baseline protocol, then this looked a very interesting project for us. And also we're quite interested in contributing, although looking at how many developers you've got on the project and exactly all the activities, it does feel from the outside a little bit like, gosh, where do you start? But I'm sure.
Oh, no, we need more.
Yes,
Come on in.
Come on in. So I was hearing about the cookbook. So even in this meeting, which is our first one, to be fair, when you're talking about the cookbooks, I think we would love to do one for Aero at some point, because I think we could do a good job there, and sort of explain.
That's fantastic, Matt. And I'm mindful of time. I'm happy to stay on a little late, but if people need to drop, we certainly understand that. But for folks that are tuning in on when we post this to YouTube, certainly, if you're interested, get in touch with Matt and team on this. And maybe you might want to try to wrangle people together. I know that there's at least one company out there, Daniel Norkin and the Envision team are really into air traffic and flight management. I think you probably already know them, but you might be able to wrangle a lot of folks around that topic. Just post in general on the Slack.
Fantastic.
And see if you can't get a posse together. And
that would be good. Yeah, because we got some pretty big challenges in our industry, at least, ahead. So and now's a good time to do it. Whilst the skies are quiet, now is actually a great time to be developing. So whilst the airports are worried about their, how much their bottom line, because we were quite fortunate, because the research money was already assigned to us and it had already gone through approvals and clearance, then the money's there. So we're quite, we're for the next couple of years, we're pretty well funded for doing this work now. At least the industry, the ones who are in the consortium that we're working with here. So that means we've got a good runway to get this right now, basically, rather than cobbling it together as usual, like our industry sometimes does, and then retrospectively, having to fix the mistakes of the past. We can actually do something proper this time round.
There were a lot of major players in that. I had the pleasure of going to the Cranfield conference on this a couple years ago, and it was quite interesting. And there were some pretty big names involved in the room there. So it looks like a pretty good opportunity, good project. People should get involved. And with that, we have concluded yet another of our fabulous steering committee sessions. Everybody out there, stay safe. This is a big week for a lot of us here in the U.S. And happy Martin Luther King Day for those for folks who are observing. I certainly am. Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Take care.
Bye.